Good evening. This is Annette, Lampard, Child Welfare. This Unit 7's subject matter was basically on whether to keep children in their families or to remove them from their families. And of the, my 3 points that I focused most in on through the reading and the articles, the text, and the watching the PowerPoint video is I guess my first question would be what is the best route? Is it foster care? Is it family preservation? Or is it termination of parental rights? I think all three things need to be included, not just the concept of foster care. I personally think that children spend way too much time in foster care and don't ever have a chance to really feel that they belong. And we all know that our system for aftercare, after foster care, is woefully inadequate, and our children often leave the foster system in this country without a family, without supports, although there have been educational programs put in place to help them in those areas, but otherwise, they just don't have anyone to go home to at Christmas time. Not anyone that claims them. And oftentimes, if their parents are available, not in jail, that type of thing, even in bad situations, they return to that dysfunctional environment just because they feel they belong somewhere. So I'm a strong advocate for, if a child is going to be in the foster system for a long time and reunification isn't likely to happen anytime soon, the parents aren't making efforts, I think that there should be way more attention paid to termination of parental rights over long-term foster care. However, I think the number one best road or path to take is family preservation, both through family support and family services, so crisis services. My second point of the 321 was, or the three, sorry, is I think that family preservation, one of the great things that I found, an aha kind of moment for me reading over the material, is that when you are successful at stepping in and preserving a family, you're teaching them to communicate, and you're teaching them to work through problems as a unit, and those are skills that will be handed on generation through generation. Whereas if the children are in foster care or in a detention center or an orphanage, they're not going to learn conflict resolution within a family, how to be a family, how to work through the problems and all of that, to see committed people grow and change and make the sacrifices, the efforts necessary. I'm very well aware that in not all cases is it right to leave the children in a family. I think kind of like in layman's terms, if a child is sexually abused, physically abused, beaten, there's no disorders or addictions in the parents, and they're not seeking help, and maybe addictions like attachment disorders that can't be helped, repeat history, patterns of abuse, I think those parental rights need to be more swiftly terminated, and then the child, as young as possible, adopted into another family where they can again learn healthy family values and coping measures that they can pass on and break a cycle and pass on generation to generation. So preserve when you can, terminate when you can't, and use the foster system when it looks like the family will be able to reunite, because the parents are doing the responsible things necessary, and a good outcome looks plausible. I think one of the best things to do in lieu of orphanage or termination of rights, my third positive point that I picked up through the exercise, is kinship care. The one thing I would add to kinship care, having them go to a family member, is historically one of the biggest problems that there has been with that is, like, for instance, if they go to a grandmother, and I mean, I watched a movie in one of my classes once, where like, say that they go to the grandmother and the grandmother just lets the mother, stay in control, basically, or the father, or, they just turn them back to the parent. The mom didn't control the mother to begin with, so the grandmother, in this case, didn't control her daughter. And perhaps if her daughter's an addict, and if her daughter comes back into her house and demands her kids, she didn't deny her drugs or money for drugs, possibly, so why is she going to deny her children? And that's a worry. So I think kinship care is a wonderful idea. I just think that it needs to be closely followed up on, as does foster care. I personally have known, I'll just make this a quick thing, I actually had a brother who was put into foster care. It's a brother I never knew by a father. My parents divorced when I was 2, and I didn't meet him again until I was 11. Apparently that was a good thing. But he got remarried a third time, and his son from his second wife, the third wife didn't want to be bothered with. There's a lot to this story, and it's a bit horrific, really. But in his foster care situations, he was badly abused. He was molested repeatedly from foster care to foster care home to foster home. And if it wasn't by, the foster parents themselves, it was by the other foster children or by the biological children. And it wasn't until his last placement, right before he went into the Job Corps, that he found a decent family. And when he came out at 18, he came to me, and I had a party for him, and of course that family came, and it was a beautiful thing. But I know on several cases the inside of the foster system, and while I believe in that there are many good people out there, there are so many foster homes that are not good. And I mean, I could go on and on about that. I was part of an advocacy group, doing home studies, that type of thing, talking to lots of foster parents that wanted to give up their children, that were making up excuses as to why they needed to keep them locked up in rooms and all of that kind of stuff. People that weren't adequately educated to deal with things like reactive attachment disorder and stuff like that. And I just left the room feeling sick after a lot of those group sessions. So, not a big fan of the foster system. Sorry for those of you who are. Two things that I think needed more, I wanted to look more into or that I really liked, actually, and was healing after violence. It was brought up in the article, Advocacy Matters. Healing after violence, helping mothers too and families too, being a focus of that, and enabling them through safety and empowerment through support groups. And I think that is so key. Oftentimes with the police, calling 911, calling CPS, if they walk into a situation and you have a mom and maybe she's protected the person who's been abusing the children, or families are broken up, people go to jail, and the aftermath is a crash. You know, now you have a mom. Let's say the dad's taken out of the house, and or these mothers go to these shelters or whatever the situation is. It's a crisis situation, and she's in a very bad place. She is a nervous wreck to have gotten that far, even for the system to have gotten involved, especially if she's made the phone call. And then all of a sudden, the perpetrator is removed. But who's there to support the mom? If she is absolutely falling apart, or dad, who's there to support the parent left behind? Who has to keep a face on and assure those children that it's safe and that it's okay? And no one thinks about that, you know? Truly, the police aren't there to be your friend. They're there to do their job, and I have witnessed several situations in which that's occurred as well, and I thought, who's here for this crisis intervention for what's left with this family? My question would be, so anyway, I want to go back to that just for a second. So healing after violence, being there, you know, just being there is tremendous, and helping them get through those next hours, helping them come up with some kind of a plan, helping the mom get the kids to bed, you know, helping the mom to sit down, you know, before her knees buckle. I mean, I just think that those things should be in place, and the support groups, I think, are phenomenal. They work in so many different areas of mental and emotional illness, and helping people to understand that what they've been through, others have been through, and learning from that and feeling empowered and getting, you know, their feet back beneath them, and that begins with number 1, feeling safe, number 2, feeling understood, and then number 3, feeling empowered. So I think those are phenomenal additives to follow up in crisis situations like this. My question is orphan or family. And, you know, when we talk about family preservation and what is best, and I was reading in the text and it goes back and forth between, you know, powers that be that believe that family preservation's for the best, for the long term, and the powers that be that thinks that family preservation puts the children more at risk. And the one thing that, I mean, I do believe in family preservation whenever it's at all possible. And one of the positive things that I came up with from this, and I just want to see if y'all agree, is, wow, orphans, foster children, women who've lost their children face such stigma. Families that have lost their children, such stigma. How much community support is there going to be for those people? There's going to be support from those of us who understand, but from the major community, everybody supports families. Family is something that is a language we all can get behind and support, all of us. So I think that there would just be so much more community support, less stigma, and therefore more success to family preservation. And of course we know it's less costly. So I think that advocacy can so much more easily be done in the preservation of families than it is in the caring of disrupted families. My thoughts. Thanks. Good night.